good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'd like to echo what Joy said and thank you guys for being willing to step out and volunteer your services and your time in our community. This is a broad overview. We'll go over kind of the current status of where Washington County is right now in this recovery effort. We'll go into letting you guys know a little bit about how the recovery takes place monetarily, how a presidential declaration is formed and approved, and then we'll go into some safety factors for yourselves as far as being ready to go out into the field. So first and foremost, this is not a certification class. It doesn't certify you to go out and mud out houses or cut trees up or any of that. It's intended for awareness purposes only. So on your screen, you'll see 8 what we call lifelines in the emergency management world: safety and security, flood, hydration. You guys can see all these. Basically, what these lifelines are is how the response to this event is taking place from a state level and a local level. And these are actually a federal guideline as far as how to plan and things like that for a disaster. So the emergency operations centers are who is controlling the response to this, organizing the first responders, requesting aid to come in, requesting help from the state and things like that. And those emergency operations centers work on like a 12-hour rotation shift. So basically the 12 hours of today, they have been working through these 8 categories, setting up for the next 12-hour response. I think they've kind of toned it down overnight now and are working pretty much 12-hour shifts during the day. Most of those people are working 16 to 18 hours instead of 12. But today they're planning for tomorrow. Tomorrow they'll be planning for Thursday and so forth and so on. So you notice the dots next to those, the green and orange dots. This is a snapshot of where the state is, and they assign these dots based on what the status is. So you'll see safety and security is green, which means it's pretty much under control as far as the state level goes. Food, hydration, shelter, that one is orange, and it will stay orange for quite a while as long as we have folks in shelters and we're passing out meals and things like that. Health and medical, that one has to do with mobile hospitals and hospital or field care in the communities that are cut off and need or have accessible needs. Energy, power, and fuel, that has to do with obviously your electrical power and things like that. And again, that's in the green. That is statewide based on a percentage. Locally, these colors may differentiate between the different counties based on where they are. Communications, that one's always a challenge. I know most of you probably have had cell phone service issues in the last week and saw that your maybe calls are dropped or your signal's not quite as strong as it normally is. That is a direct result of communications lines being down and the cellular service being inundated with folks on there trying to communicate. Transportation, that has to do with your roadways, obviously, sea, land, and air. It's the coordination of helicopters coming in, taking food into the areas that are still cut off. Hazardous materials, that one changed from green to orange between yesterday and today. And the reason that has taken place is they're actually out in the hot zones taking soil samples and getting those soil samples off and getting them looked at and finding out that a lot of these places are contaminated, whether it's with chemical substances or bio substances. And I'll get into that a little bit further into this presentation. And then your water systems is obviously how functional the water delivery system is. And I think in Washington County, we're still under a conserved water situation. The floods cause silt silt gets into this, and it has to be cleaned and removed before the water systems can be restored back to full capability. Some additional situations and updates for Washington County. Their targeted searches are complete. They have been working on major and total loss assessments, and I think they actually finished those up yesterday, and then the rest of the damage assessment was expected to be completed later today. I don't know if that actually took place or not. Debris removal has started in the Bumpus Cove area, meaning that they're getting heavy equipment in there and starting to remove the debris that has come down the river and landed in those areas, starting to get those roadways cleared up. I'm pretty sure the National Guard is assisting in removing that with heavy equipment. Utility crews are still working to restore service over there. There's still several houses in Washington County that are without power down around that area. And as everyone's seen, we have another hurricane that's coming into this area, so that's going to tax those utility crews even more if they have to respond down to Florida. All right, Emergency Management Assistance Compact. It's called an EMAC Agreement. What this means is states can request help from other states. They can request it from the federal government, or they can request from both. We're in a unique situation in Tennessee because we are usually the ones providing the help to other states. We've been deployed to Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Texas, Alabama. Most of the Gulf states, or the Gulf states and the East Coast states, during hurricane situations. So this is an oddity that we are actually the ones that had to ask for assistance this time. What that EMAC agreement is when I was the manager of Washington County Emergency Management, part of my tasking each year was to put together a package for response, whether it be law enforcement strike teams, swift water teams, ambulance strike teams, all of those types of teams that would be deployed in this. And we put together how much it would cost for us to send those strike teams into these areas. And we submit that to the state. And that way the state has a preset bid that when that request comes out from Florida or South Carolina, then we put that bid in, and it's obviously it's a low bid situation for people to go in. That's not meaning that the people aren't trained. The people are very, very highly trained. They have to get certified by the state. So it just has more or less to do with what the cost of doing business is as far as pay and how much it costs to send our vehicles and things like that down. We have Nevada, Oklahoma, some teams from Oregon, teams from all over the United States that are working in this area now, helping with search and rescue efforts, helping get food distributed into certain areas. So we have put out an EMAC request from the state, and it is and it will be being filled for some time to come. All right, so damage assessment. Once the storm has rolled through and the waters have subsided and we're able to get to these locations, the damage assessment starts. And these are teams that go out and they actually look at the damage. They look at the houses, they look at the roadways, they look at buildings and bridges and things like that. You'll see on your screen, there's two different categories. One is public assistance, PA, and the other was individual assistance. Public assistance is anything that is publicly owned, anything that belongs to a government entity, such as your roadways, your bridges, fire stations, schoolhouses, city halls, things like that. Individual assistance has to do with the actual individual property owners, the private citizens. The individual assistance is normally one of the bigger challenges in the fact that not everyone is eligible for individual assistance. There's certain criteria that has to be met in order for you to be eligible for that. And the criteria pretty much is you have to be a homeowner with no homeowner's insurance in order to qualify. So if you're a homeowner, single family dwelling, and you have homeowner's insurance, you don't always qualify for this individual assistance. If you're a renter or if you're a landlord that has rental properties, then you don't qualify for that individual assistance. This can be waived. It can be requested that the regulations on that be lifted. One of the times when that did get lifted was during the Gallenberg fires, when a lot of those rental properties and things like that were destroyed through that. They did make it to where some of those folks could get individual assistance. The debris piles are enormous. There's tons and tons and tons of debris that has been strewn out all over the flood zone and what we call the hot zone down in that area. A lot of the material that is here isn't from here. It's from North Carolina that came downstream and wound up in our area. Trees piled on top of trees, houses that were washed off a foundation, boats, campers, anything that would float that has gone downstream. We will be working in debris management for years to come. It's going to take a long time to get a lot of this debris cleaned up and get it managed. Permits have to be put in order to be able to burn the debris. Very strict guidelines on how this debris is managed and where you can put it and how you can dispose of it. Okay, so presidential declaration on the 28th, shortly after the storm rolled through, President Biden authorized some disaster assistance for Cock, Hawkins, and Washington counties. I don't know if additional counties were added to that, but it was for sheltering and taking care of the folks that are in the shelters. These things are pretty specific. They work kind of like a grant in that you can't spend that money on anything other than what that assistance has been earmarked for. So all of that money that was released in was solely to house folks and make sure they have the proper needs for food and things like that. The other side of that is it's called the Stafford Act, and that's what the federal government, that's what authorizes the federal government to be able to assist monetarily with these issues. It's twofold in order to be able to get a presidential declaration. First part is the county has to meet a threshold in order for them to be able to qualify. So for Washington County for this year, the number it's a per capita number too. So the number for Washington County this year is like $4.60 per person, and it's based on population of Washington County. So that's where you see that 828. There's approximately 180,000 folks at the $4.60. That's not an exact number. That's just an estimate based on our population is a little over 180,000 in Washington County. So once Washington County meets their threshold, then the state has to meet a threshold, and the state's threshold is 9.8 million. So the way that works is all of the counties affected are combined and then put toward that 9.8 million. What we're seeing here, I saw an interview earlier today on WJHL with one of our representatives that so far the damage is estimated at 37 million for Washington County, and it's a little over 100,000. I think for Carter County is what was stated on there. So that alone for Washington County has put the state over that $9.8 million threshold, which means now the state of Tennessee is eligible through FEMA to apply for a presidential declaration. And I know that that's already taken place. That's already being handled at the state level. And they're trying to get that expedited as quickly as possible. So once all of that is recovered, all this data is put into an application. It's sent to FEMA. FEMA approves it. Once FEMA approves it, it'll go to the president for authorization. Once he signs off on it, then the money will start to flow back into this area. The money comes back on a cost share basis, meaning that it's a 75-25 split. So whatever Washington County spends or Carter County spends or Unicoi, they're only going to get back 75% of that monetarily. The state is supposed to match the 25%. The state in the past has covered that for the individual counties. I don't know that it will happen this time. I'm kind of guessing that it probably will. But the reason this is important, I'll get to here in a few slides. Just keep in mind that it's a 75-25 split, and the county is responsible for 25% of that. The drawback to this process can take years to get fully reimbursed. The Dry Creek floods that happened back in 2011, I was actually a firefighter that responded to that back in those days. And between that and 2016, I came over to the emergency management side, and we actually got the last check, reimbursement check in 2016. So it took 5 years to fully get the money back for that. All right, so VOAD, I don't know if you've heard that term or not. VOAD, it's Voluntary Organizations Active in Disasters. This is the United Way, the Red Cross, Holston Baptist Association, all of these volunteer organizations that come in and try to help manage these disasters and put manpower into these areas. Sometimes you'll hear these referred to as NGOs or non-governmental organizations. I do know that that's one of the terms that's being used now for opening up the volunteer portion of this recovery. So there is an emergency operations center in Nashville. That is our state emergency operations center. Our regional emergency operations center in this area is in Knoxville, on the west side of Knoxville. And then each county has an emergency operations center that has been up and running pretty much 24 hours a day since some of them since last Thursday. VOAD, this VOAD group has a seat in every one of those emergency operations centers, and it starts from the beginning, getting things lined up, getting volunteer organizations in, trying to get the volunteers managed, making sure all the needs are met as far as the volunteers go. These VOADs are pretty much who guides the entire volunteer response when it comes to natural disasters. All right, as far as you as individuals go, when you go into the field, some things to have with you and make sure you're taking care of yourself is always have your ID with you. Take your ID with you when you go. They will ask you for your identification. Some folks will want to see it to check you in. Some places will run background checks on you depending on where you're going in. The bad thing is situations like this tend to draw bad people out sometimes that don't have good intent. So that's why they have to do the background checks. If you go out into the field or you go to a distribution center or something like that, make sure you pack your food. Take food with you. Don't expect to be fed at these things. Most of the sites do have food with people bringing in donated food and things like that for you to eat. Sometimes it's a lot of snack food and not a whole lot of real food. But don't count on actually being fed there. Don't count on somebody to take care of you. Make sure you take food with you so you can take care of yourself. Bring changes of clothes with you. Even if you're working in a distribution center, have a change of clothes in case you spill something on you or something like that. If you're going out into the hot zone to do debris management, take a couple of changes of clothes. That is some really dirty work being out and actually doing the mud outs on these houses and things like that. Unfortunately, with the water, the amount of water coming through, it stirs up our insect population really bad. So make sure you have some insect repellent available if you're going to be going out into these hot zones to work. Also, make sure to pack some of your medications. If you have medications that you are required to take for your own health, bring them with you in case you end up working a double shift or something like that. You could end up staying longer than you expect. So make sure you take some medicine with you. The weather forecast. Look at the weather the day before you go and look at the weather the day you do go and make sure you have the appropriate attire for whatever situation you're going to be working in. And then take PPE with you if you have it. If not, try to get some and take it with you. Don't require or don't expect them to be able to provide PPE for you. And for those of you that doesn't know what PPE is, that's personal protective equipment. And I will get into that in a couple more slides. All right, when you're up for a shift, wherever you're going, try to arrive early. They will probably have paperwork that they would like for you to fill out to track your hours. And also, you may sign up to sort through goods at a distribution site. And when you get there, they may need you to help unload trucks or load delivery vehicles or things like that. So be prepared to do a job different from what you actually signed up when you get there. All right, when you get to your assigned locations, make sure you find somebody and check in. Let them know you're there. There will be, most of the time at these places, forms to fill out to track your hours. And we'll get into that here in just a second. If you go out into the hot zone and you're mudding out houses or you're working in debris fields, always have a partner. Don't go out on your own. You can get hurt. You can get hurt bad enough that you can't walk. You could break an ankle or something like that. And a lot of these places are with zero cell phone service right now. So make sure you have a partner with you when you're out in the field. All right, so I've mentioned tracking your hours several times. So this goes back to that 75-25 that I was talking about with the county earlier, the 75% reimbursement and the county being responsible for the other 25. Your time is valuable. It's worth money. So each hour you spent, I'll just use $20 an hour as an example. If you go out for 8 hours and you're worth $20 an hour, you don't actually get that money, but that money does, or that time value does go to offset that 25% of what the county is responsible for. So those of you that are familiar with grant cycles and how grants run, this would be the in-kind portion of a grant. So if you use your vehicle as part of your response, if you have a truck and you're delivering water, or you're using your car to deliver food or move people from point A to point B, your vehicle is worth money as well. So make sure you track that. If you bring personal tools, chainsaws, anything like that, if you are able to provide heavy equipment like track hose, backhoes, dump trucks, front end loaders, tractors, those are all things that can be tracked, and all of that goes toward the in-kind portion, that 25%. So if there's enough folks out there, and with the amount of volunteers that we've seen here lately that want to get out there and work, we can definitely offset that 25% of what this is going to cost. So not only is your physical labor valuable, but the time that you spend doing that physical labor is also valuable. And this is just a chart that I threw on here to show you the FEMA numbers for 2023. You can see, even if you have like a jet ski and you're running food or something up the lake, that jet ski is worth $34.32 an hour. So if that just kind of gives you an idea, this was just a sheet that I threw on there. No particular reason that it's got boats and things like that on there, but you can see that over on that right hand side, that each one of those things has a value per hour. All right, back to the PPE, personal protective equipment. If you're going out into the hot zone to do mud outs and pick up debris and things like that, PPE is vital. Hard hats, eye protection, N95 or KN95 mask, some kind of respiratory protection, gloves, be it latex, butyl, leather protective gloves. Always wear long sleeves and long pants. I saw a video today of some folks in a house standing in mud that was a little over ankle deep, and one of the young girls had shorts on and tennis shoes. The unfortunate part of that is we all know that what's underground in a flood comes to the top, which means These floodwaters reach 26 to 30 feet in some areas. So they picked up barrels of who knows what. Sewage, raw sewage is mixed in with this. Upstream from where we are, a water treatment plant was overtaken. So that sewage is mixed in. Going into these houses, when the water pushes up, it pushes that sewage back up into the house. So actually, sometimes being in the house working is more dangerous than being outside when it comes to the bacteria and the diseases that you can get. There have been some places set up, pods, points of distribution, to be able to get shots to go in there and work. I would suggest you getting hepatitis B vaccine if you are the hepatitis series, if you're going to be working in there and you haven't had it. Tetanus shot, if your tetanus shot isn't updated, make sure you get a tetanus shot before you volunteer to go into that. Excuse me. With us being a little over a week into this, be mindful of mold. Now that the water is gone, moisture, it's been cool, mold will start to grow on this. And this mold can be just as dangerous as any kind of bacteria or anything like that. So make sure you wear protective equipment over your face. Sharp objects and debris is in places that it's not supposed to be. It's not where it normally is. So make sure you pay attention, have your steel toe boots on. Thick soled boots, and just protect yourself. Wildlife has been displaced too during this, and these debris piles tend to become a habitat for this wildlife once the water subsides. So always be mindful of how you move debris. If you go into that hot zone, try to keep the debris between you and the pile. Snakes tend to get into these debris piles and make a makeshift nest, for lack of a better term. So just make sure you pay attention to what is actually in those debris piles if you work there. And then again, the climate itself, make sure you dress appropriately for whatever the weather is for that day that you're working. So a windshield survey, if you're volunteering at a distribution site or something like that, this isn't as important as it is if you're going out into the actual hot zone to work. The windshield survey is paying attention to what you see as you drive in. Look for potholes in the road or holes in the road or where the side of the road has given way. Make sure you're paying attention to overhead hazards, power lines. I don't know if you guys know what widowmakers are, but when a tree has fallen over and landed against another tree and it's propped up, that's called a widowmaker, because that can fall off and basically kill you if it lands on you. So just pay attention to that type of stuff and plan a route out as you're going in. If you have to leave, make sure you're cognizant of how to get out of that area if you need to. Once you get to the site, I suggest doing a 360 around where you're going to be working. Walk the area before you just jump in and start working. Look for holes that could be in the ground. Look for that debris that you may miss when you get out and go in. If you have the capability to take marking paint with you, take it and mark it. If you're working in a hot zone, you're going to be on a team and you're going to want your other folks to know where these dangers are. Look for power lines that are down. Anything like that. Look at the structure. If you're working around a structure and it doesn't look sturdy enough to work in, stay away from it. Working in the debris pile, one move of something with pressure on it could cause the entire pile to come down on you. This stuff is stacked up and it's not stacked up neat, and it can be very dangerous working in those areas. Utilize proper lifting techniques, whether you're picking up water bottles or crates of food or you're working in the hot zone. Make sure to lift with your legs and not your back. If you get injured, you become one of the people that somebody that's working has to take care of instead of actually taking care of the situation while you're there. Being hydrated. If you're going to be working on this Thursday, you should be starting to hydrate today. Don't wait until the day of to start drinking fluids. Get ahead of it, stay ahead of it, and remember to drink while you're working. All right, interacting with the flood victims, whether you're at a distribution site or you're working at these folks' houses, keep in mind that these folks are going through a very wide range of emotions. These folks are traumatized, they're overwhelmed, they've lost everything, they're trying to figure out how to get things back. They're going through the mourning process. And what we're seeing right now is a lot of these folks are just angry. They're angry because it happened. They're angry because they think they're not getting help. They're angry because they think they're on their own. Just listen to these folks. I put a little statement in here, use your listening skills, not your talking skills. I'm a talker. I like to get in there and talk and interact with folks, but sometimes your ears are more valuable than your mouth is in this situation. If they want to talk to you, they will. Keep in mind that some of these folks going into distribution sites are embarrassed that they're having to go get free things. They've been self-sufficient, hardworking folks, able to support themselves, and now all of a sudden they find themselves needing to rely on somebody else to get that, and that causes embarrassment and things like that. Be aware of how you approach these folks. Please don't make negative statements on the response effort. We all have our own opinions on how things go or how things should be working. Just make sure you don't convey that to the folks that are out there. If you want to talk about that to your family at your house, get it all out before you go out and interact with these folks. We got to keep a positive outlook for these guys. Don't add negativity to an already negative situation. Don't offer help or make promises that can't be delivered. If you're able to deliver 30 cases of water in your vehicle, that's pretty much something that you can say, I can do that, and you can make that happen. If you see on Facebook or social media that you heard that there's 400 military folks coming into this area to help with the cleanup, but it's not been vetted, it could be a rumor. And what we're seeing right now is a lot of vicious rumors going around, a lot of misinformation spread, and it's causing a delay in the response because people basically aren't trusting the folks that are coming into the area to help. So try to debunk as many rumors as you can. The Washington County Johnson City Emergency Management Agency actually has a page on their website that they're calling Mythbusters, and they're taking these rumors and they're actually fact checking them and put what the rumor is and what is actually taking place. So if you're hearing this stuff, you can always shoot them an email and let them know what you're hearing so they can correct that and get the correct information out uh, into the communities. One of the biggest things that we're seeing right now is self-deployment. Please don't self-deploy. Joy will go over here in a few minutes of how you can respond, how you can register to go to these places. Self-deploying means that you just go out and you drive into a place and you get out of your vehicle and you walk up and you say, I want to help. I know this past Saturday was off the charts with volunteers because all of those folks that had to work all week had Saturday off and they wanted to contribute. There were hundreds and hundreds of volunteers showing up at these places wanting to volunteer. And what that does is that takes folks away from actually doing the work that they're supposed to be doing at this site to manage all these folks and tell them that there's no work from there. I know folks that drove from church to church to church over 3 counties looking for a place to volunteer on Saturday and ended up not being able to volunteer anywhere because there were so many volunteers out in the area. Please use the proper registration sites to volunteer. This is an ongoing process. We're going to need volunteers for over a year to get some of this stuff taken. You will have an opportunity to volunteer at some point through this disaster. And keep in mind that too many volunteers can cause more issues than not enough volunteers. Volunteers too many, you get vehicles out jamming roadways up that are already compromised. Just be vigilant and keep in mind that if you register the correct way, there's shifts. You can pick what shift you work, show up for your shift, go home when your shift is done, let the next crew come in. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We got to keep that in mind that this is going to be ongoing for a long, long time. So again, I want to thank you guys for